All right, welcome back. It's been about 4 hours and our starter that we fed a little while ago is super bubbly. It smells good. Hang on, I need a spoon. We're gonna show you how you tell if your starter's ready to go to the next stage. What you do is you get a teaspoon and you want to have a glass of water and you're doing the float test. So you just put a teaspoonful of your starter in the water, and if it floats, I don't know if you can see that, but mine is floating, that means it's ready to go. If it sinks to the bottom, it means you don't have an active enough yeast colony to really leaven your bread. So I could already tell because I showed you earlier we had 1.5 cups of unfed starter when right after I fed it, it was 1.5 cups, and now we are at 3.5, so we knew it was ready. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make the sponge, and the sponge is just, it's another layer of pre-fermentation so that you can really get a lot of flavor developed in your bread. So my recipe calls for 227 grams of your fed starter, and we know it's ready because it's floated. So I've got on my scale, and I'm going to measure in some of my starter. And then after I do this, I'm gonna feed this starter and either put it in the fridge or leave it on the counter if I'm gonna do some more baking this weekend. Probably should, right? There's nothing else to do. I'll just stay home and bake bread. Who wants some? You guys let me know, I'll bring you some. I'll leave it on your front porch. Okay, so 227 grams of starter. This is where you do want to start to get precise. I said earlier, it didn't really matter with when I was just feeding the starter. You want to kind of get your proportions right, but this is where you want to get your proportions really exact. And of course, since I'm recording, I can't get it exact. All right, there we go. 227 grams of starter, 340 grams water. Oops. Don't do that. This is the boring part, right? Watching Julie pour. Okay. Crazy. I had to shut the door so you didn't have my dog barking. All right, and then we're going to add our flour. This is all the water of this recipe, but it's not going to be all the flour, and we're not adding any salt yet. We're going to let this sit for 4 hours on the counter, and then we're going to let it sit overnight in the refrigerator to really develop the flavor, so it's pretty fun. All right, so now I need to add, 362 grams of all-purpose flour, King Arthur brand all-purpose flour. You can't just use any all-purpose because they have different amounts of protein, and that affects the texture of your bread. So if you're going to use this recipe, you have to use King Arthur all-purpose flour, and it's 362 grams, but I'm going to add some rye flour because I'm fancy. All right, let's see. How much do I want to add of that? I'm going to do just under 100 grams of rye flour. And the reason I'm doing it here and not later is that I want the rye flour. I'm making this up. I don't know if this is real, but this is my thinking, is that I want the rye flour to have time to be in contact with that, so you can get that pre-fermentation with the rye, not just with the whole wheat. Hang on, I need a spoon. Right up back. So basically all you do is you just mix this up and you cover it, you leave it on the counter for 4 hours, and then you put it in the refrigerator for overnight. So that's it for today. You can see that it's not very much work in one day, but we just keep the process moving forward. All right, so I will feed my starter, mix this, let it sit, and then I'll see you tomorrow.